Welcome to a new lesson on quantitative information with me, Mr. Ahmed Khalifa. In this lesson, we are going to know how we deal with quantitative problems in whatever form they happen to pop up on your SAT test. So let us start out by asking, what are quantitative questions, as you can see here in that slide? Well, there are a couple of key things that's important for us to know about this kind of question. What are quantitative questions? First, they test information that's presented in graphs, charts, and tables. Now, these graphs, charts, and tables may look complicated at first on some questions, but really they all follow the basic same rules of these sorts of graphs, charts, and tables. So that's what we are going to focus on trying to get familiar with. Okay, two here, these questions are contained within passages, so you are always going to be asked these questions on tables, graphs, and charts within either reading or writing passages, but it's always going to be the same kind of quantitative what questions. 3, they may look scary, but all you need to know is how to read a graph, which is exactly what we're going to focus on in this lesson. So first, a quick review of some basic properties that will be important for you to know. Variables. Now, variables are basically just the things that graphs communicate about. A variable is just anything that can change at all. It doesn't matter what it is. It can have different values that are ultimately recorded in the graph, table, or chart. So, the reason that is important for us to understand variables is because variables will be what we will deal with on any kind of graph, table, or chart that the test asks us to look at. So if a variable could be anything that can change, what would be some examples of that? Okay, well, variable could be time, as you can see here. It could also be frequency, it could be weight, or even length. Okay, those are maybe some of the more scientific or mathematical variables that you might be familiar with. But remember, a variable is just anything that can change, which means that possibilities are almost endless. A variable could also be a location, it could be color, it could be even a person. There are also two types of variables, and that's something very important every one of my students should understand. There are two types of variables that we need to know about. First, we have the independent variables and the dependent variables. Independent variables changes automatically on its own, but a dependent variable depends on the independent variables and only changes when those ones change or do. Okay, fair enough. Now, if it sounds a little bit abstract right now, I agree with you, that's totally okay. The point is just to be familiar with what variables are, and we will see how they are used as we start to break down these different sorts of tables. So what I want people to know now, that we have got two types of variables, independent variables and dependent variables. So let us go ahead and start doing that now. Instead of talking very abstract, we can take a look at a basic table here. Tables. So what's a table? It's just a way to organize some information. Let's have a look at this example in this table. We have a type of sandwich, as you can see here. We have numbers of people who picked that sandwich as their favorite, and we have local delis, like local food that serve that sandwich. So, for example, if we looked at the grilled cheese here, grilled cheese sandwich, 16 people, as you can see here, picked that sandwich as their favorite. and 24 local delis serve that sandwich. Fair enough? But only 9 people picked the Robin's sandwich as their favorite here, yet 38 local delis serving it. Basically, just a way to organize the information. Fair enough? In this case, it happens to be about sandwiches, but of course, it could be about anything else in this table. The independent variables would be the sandwiches, as you can see here, because they exist entirely on their own. We don't change them every now and then. Fair enough? And the things that change depending upon that sandwich or the sandwich, the dependent variables, are these people here who pick it as their favorite and the local delis here that serve it. Okay? Which sandwich is most popular? Okay? This is the question. Well, which sandwich had the most people picking it as their favorite? We look at this one here. It looks like the answer is the Turkey Club, which is what? 31. Because 31 people pick it as their favorite. And that's more than any other kind of sandwich. Okay? So, we have broken down our first way to organize information through a table. So for all my students, I need them to know that we have got independent variables and we have got dependent variables. Let's now turn to a bar graph. Bar graphs. And a bar graph looks like this. It has a horizontal axis and a vertical axis, as you can see here. Remember this one. Any bar graphs should have horizontal axis and what? Vertical axis. Those are two ways of organizing the information in bar graphs. The bar graph itself has different pieces of information. So here again, sticking with our sandwich theme, we'll never move away. We have sandwich preference versus availability, as you can see here in the legend or key. We have those different types of sandwiches: BLT, grilled cheese, peanut butter and jelly, Reuben, Turkey Club. Fair enough? And as you can see here also, the dark gray category here is the people who picked it as their favorite. And the light one here, the light gray, is the local delis that serve in the vertical axis. They give us the number of people along with the number of delis. The other thing is we need to know that the sandwiches here are still the independent variables, okay? Because they exist on their own, okay? Independent of who likes them and who serves them. But everything else here, everything else remains the dependent variables. Those depend on what people like and where these people or these sandwiches are served. So let us see if we can find data, if we can find some data in the graph, okay? So again, the sandwiches here are still the independent the independent variables, okay? We said that before. How many people, let us say this one, how many people picked grilled cheese as their favorite, okay? In the graph, how many people picked grilled cheese as their favorite? Okay, as you can see here, we would find the sandwich grilled cheese, okay, or labeled grilled cheese here. The second one from the vertical what? From the vertical axis. Then we would say, okay, we are looking for how many people pick that as their favorite. That's the dark gray, if you could see it here. How many people picked it? Okay, sorry, we are here. How many people picked it? Okay, and if we were to try to measure that over to vertical axis, so we'll just measure it this way, okay? So we will come to say that it's almost about 15 or about what? 16. Fair enough? we've gone ahead and found that data just by knowing how to read the graph, and that's all you have to do. Okay, let's now take a look at a pie graph. Now a pie graph looks basically like a large pie, and you cut it up into different pieces like pizza. So here is an example. We have got some distribution here of favorite sandwiches. All our favorite sandwiches from before, as we mentioned it before. Now, of course, the sandwiches are still our independent variables, okay? We have got here the turkey club, the robin, and the peanut butter, and so on, okay? So these sandwiches are the independent variables. That would be the case on any graph, okay? The percentages are the dependent variables. So 31%, 21%, or 26%, 16%, these are the dependent variables. So we can tell what percent of people have Turkey Club or BLT as their favorite sandwich. The key rule here, as you can see, and something very important that you have to remember is what? In the pie graph, only give what? Only give percents, not totals. That's something very important. Something very important when it comes to pie graph. So only give percent or percentages, not what? Not total. Okay? Let us see.